He was like, if you need the wardrobe to do this scene, then you don't know your character yet. You know your character. It's you. The question is, are you going to allow your true self to come through? Or are you going to continue to maybe mask it or downplay it or dilute how you show up or second guess yourself or ignore your own values to appease other people?
This is the Joy Act, where finding joy beyond divorce begins with your understanding that the depth of your heartache shows the depth of your capacity for joy. I'm Dr. Lisa Summerour, and together we'll use accountability, alignment, communication, and trust to transform your journey. It's time to step into the Joy Act.
Hello, welcome to this episode of the Joy Act. I'm Dr. Lisa Summerour. I'm an accredited breakup and divorce coach, and here at the Joy Act, I am here to support you so that you understand that you can create joy in your life after going through a divorce. It is 100% possible, and I'm here to give you tips and strategies, support, and be your cheerleader as you figure out what that looks like for you. So this week, I will be talking about communication, and it connects to weeks 1 and 2, just following along with this theme of what are the things that you can take 100% control over so that you feel more empowered in your walk into your pathway to joy. And I wanted to bring this up because I don't know if anybody noticed it, but it was an accident that happened, and it came from a place, but it just wasn't something I planned. So I can't take real credit for it because it was just popped into my head because of my past. So there is a theme happening this season with my broadcast here, and the theme has a little theatrical or theater or film bend. So you may notice language like dialogue or scenes or director or producer, things like that may pop in. That's where that came from. It just popped into my head, but I think it popped into my head because my background includes film, television, and theater. Matter of fact, I'm still a card-carrying member of SAG-AFTRA. I don't ever plan on letting my union membership dissolve. So I pay my dues faithfully. But I did do that for a living for a while, and I'm going to share with you some of what I did. And it won't be because people are going to get on here and ask. It will be because people who know me will say, why didn't you just tell people some of the stuff you were in? So some of the things that I have been in that you can probably still find because it's been a while. I was Shy McBride's wife in The Sixth Sense, starring him and Bruce Willis. So that one is a big one that you might know. The Enemy Within, I was Forrest Whitaker's wife. And another one that you may know, the movie Philadelphia with Tom Hanks and Denzel Washington. Yes, I was Denzel Washington's wife. I am always the wife. I play a good wife. And how funny is it that I'm a breakup and divorce coach who's been married and divorced multiple times, but on screen, I am the best freaking wife. My mother always loved the fact that I was a wife, and she would say, because wives never have sex on screen in movies. And I started thinking, is that true? Except the show Lioness right now that's on. I don't remember what network it's on, but they do. So maybe things have changed since then. But I just wanted to share that with you because I thought it was just interesting that I didn't think of that in terms of having this as a theme. It just popped up, but I guess because that language is in my head. So the dialogue skills, this is all about you communicating and how your ability to communicate effectively with others and with yourself can help transform how you show up in the world. And it's a confidence booster when you realize you don't have to be afraid of how you're communicating because you're comfortable. I have my notes up here on the screen so I don't forget anything today. If you look at this as a performance, every great performance, there is this part where the main character, they say, finds their voice. They step into their own. And I can remember doing theater performances where I felt like in rehearsal, I could not get this character. I could not get this character. And I can hear my instructor at the time, Johnny Hobbs Jr., matter of fact, it was Johnny Hobbs telling me, because it was like, maybe I need to put the wardrobe on. And he was like, if you need the wardrobe to do this scene, then you don't know your character yet. You know your character. It's you. The question is, are you going to allow your true self to come through? Or are you going to continue to maybe mask it or downplay it or dilute how you show up or second guess yourself or ignore your own values to appease other people. And I'm not picking on anybody in particular because I think we have all been there. I know I have. I can remember actually being in a coaching program, and the facilitator at the time called me out. It's stop dimming your light thinking it's helping other people feel better. It's not. If they're insecure about how they're showing up in the world, you dimming your light and being less than who you could be is not going to help them. It's not going to change anything for them. So this is not just about finding your voice, but it's about transforming how you show up because you are using your full voice. So let's talk about this solo performance. I like to call this the me first approach. The me first. Yes, it gets to be all about you right now. You get to make this all about you. And this is not about me casting you as some diva or you making yourself the diva of your entire life. Although, from a very humble perspective, it's okay for you to be the main character in your life, to be that diva. Excuse me. But in terms of diva, using it in a negative context, that's not what this is about. This is not about you stealing the spotlight. This is about you standing confidently in your spotlight, in your own light. That's what this is about. So start thinking in terms of where should I be? When a character comes up on stage, you're not going to see very good actors on stage or on film looking doubtful and confused about what they're supposed to be doing with their lines or how they're moving around. You have to have confidence in the character that you're playing and your ability to be able to play it. Otherwise, it doesn't ring true for the people watching. And if you've ever been to a live performance, maybe a high school play or a children's play or someplace where you don't have professionals or I'm not going to say some other places where you might see this because I don't want to insult anybody. But let's just say you've been someplace where the acting wasn't that good and you've noticed it and it becomes a distraction. It makes it difficult for you to believe the scenes. And what's interesting is every theatrical performance, every film that we go to, we know we're not watching real life. But if the acting is good, when the acting is good, we get so caught up in those characters that we actually forget for a moment sometimes that it's not real. We talk about it afterwards as if those things really happen, even though we know we're talking about characters. So in this instance, it's you and it's real. And there are a couple of things that you can do to help yourself in these moments with your communication. And I always start this conversation about communication with how are you communicating with yourself? What are you communicating to yourself? And I pulled up one of my favorite books that I recommend. What to say when you talk to yourself. What to say when you talk to yourself. And I love this book because there is a software program that you can download for your phone and you can actually listen to audios that focus on different aspects of your life. It could be weight loss. It could be, I want to quit smoking. It could be confidence in the workplace. There are dozens of different topics. And I used to do this every single morning when I was getting dressed. I would put it on when I got into the shower and I would leave it on the entire time I was getting dressed or putting makeup on or whatever. And that's what I would listen to. I don't listen to it as often now, but I did it for months and months after a breakup. And it really helped because you realize how many negative thoughts or how many thoughts that you have that aren't conducive to you healing. Or you might need a distraction because you're just remembering, you're having this constant recall of what happened in the relationship or ruminating about your ex. Whatever it is, having something positive and something productive going on in your head can override a lot of that stuff. And it helps you to reprogram how you're thinking so that when you do start going down that path, you're more aware of it. And you might do it for a short period of time, but you're able to arrest it. You're able to stop it. So What to Say When You Talk to Yourself by Dr. Shad Helmstetter. Highly recommend that book because that's the first thing. I really believe that when we are not being honest with ourselves, it's the gateway to us not being honest with other people. And it's not about you being a bad person or being intentionally deceptive. Sometimes it is a protective mechanism, or we don't want to be that vulnerable, or we're reserved or shy. You might be shy and you just don't want to open up to people like that. And so we lie. People say, how are you doing? And you go, oh, I'm good. I'm fine. I'm fine. And it's you're not fine. And the crazy thing is sometimes the person who asks you the question knows you're not fine. But since you just lied, now the rest of the day you have to look like you're fine because they're expecting you to be fine. And so now you've embodied that lie. I call that embodying the lie that you just told somebody else because you didn't want to be vulnerable in that moment. And it could be something as simple as saying, I'm not doing that well today, or I'm out of sorts, or this is a difficult day for me and I actually might need a little support here at work. Thank you for asking. I really appreciate the fact that you ask. And you can leave it at that. You don't have to give them your entire story of everything going on in your life, but just that is such a human thing to do. And I think the person would appreciate it more because they would feel like, wow, they gave me an honest answer and I don't really need to know the whole story, right? So just think about that as you're going through your day. Look, this is not about some moral high ground of we have to always tell 100% the truth because we're human and we don't. For whatever reason, for whatever the situation, it's just 100%. It's not going to happen 100% for the rest of your life. It's just not. But that is one thing that you can do for yourself because this really is about what can you do that's going to be beneficial to you so that you show up as at your highest level, as a friend of mine likes to say, and you're able to be authentic. You're able to be authentically you with your flaws, your imperfections, or whatever it is, but that you can stand in confidence in the spotlight that was meant for you. So the other thing that I recommend is being able to name your emotion, being able to name the emotional state that you're in right now. And sometimes people will say, how do you feel? And instead of telling them an emotion like I feel sad or I'm a little angry or I feel joy, I feel happy today, we will tell them what we're thinking. And catch yourself, see if you can think of a bunch of emotions and write them down and figure out. So what I talk about in my book, Divorce is Not a Destination, is the title of my book. What I talk about in Divorce is Not a Destination in one of the chapters is I actually go through all of the stages of the loss cycle. Those are the emotional stages that we go through after a breakup or a divorce. And it's very similar to the stages of the grief cycle or the grieving cycle when you lose a loved one to death. And it's really important because I think something can happen when you're able to put a name to what you're feeling, to what you're experiencing. Because when you can name it, you can look at what the characteristics look like and you can look at how they show up for you. And it's not about denying the emotion. And because I think, again, that's just like lying about how you're feeling. You got to be honest with yourself before you can figure out how and what you want to share with other people. And I think it's empowering to be able to say, I know exactly what I'm dealing with right now. I've got a couple of emotions I've been going back and forth between the last couple of days or the last couple of weeks, because then you can go, okay, where is this coming from? Where is this coming from? So when you can do that, it sets the stage for you to be able to be honest. Another thing that you can do other than identifying the emotion you're in is set boundaries. So I want to frame this in the context of you're communicating with yourself first, but eventually you're going to be communicating externally. And if you're going through a breakup or a divorce, or you just went through one and you have children, no matter what age, you very well are going to probably need to have conversations with your child about what happened. And if you do have young children and you're still in a co-parenting situation, I want to speak to that. Thanks for watching. I hope you're enjoying this episode. I wanted to take just a minute and share something with you. There is one question that I get asked more often than any other question, and that's how do you navigate the difficult journey of a divorce? And that's exactly why I wrote Divorce is Not a Destination. So if you're a woman who is going through a divorce right now, you've been through one recently, or you think divorce might be on the horizon, I wrote Divorce is Not a Destination specifically with you in mind. I wanted to give you practical tools on learning how to communicate better with yourself, with your children if you have any, and even with your ex as you're going through this process. I also wanted to share with you the importance of having a support team and identifying who the right people are for you to build and nurture the support team that's going to best serve you. And finally, I wanted to introduce you to or explain to you the loss cycle And those are the emotional stages that we go through when we're going through a divorce. I wanted you to be able to put a name to what it is that you're feeling and know that everything that you're experiencing is perfectly normal for what's happening to you right now. So if you are ready to start your healing journey, get a copy of Divorce is Not a Destination. You can order one at my website, divorceisnotadestination.com, or go to Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, or check with your local bookstore. Now, let's get back to this episode. And if you're going through a breakup or a divorce, or you just went through one, and you have children, no matter what age, you very well are going to probably need to have conversations with your child about what happened. And if you do have young children and you're still in a co-parenting situation, I want to speak to that, because that's one of those scenarios where you may not have the ability to disconnect completely from your ex. And even for people who don't have children, some of them find it impossible to disconnect completely from their ex. That's a whole nother show because it is possible. And it's actually one of the things that I coach my clients through, because sometimes when you have been in an unhealthy relationship, a toxic relationship, an abusive, dysfunctional relationship, as difficult as it may be, one of the healthiest things you might do for yourself is to figure out, how do I disconnect? How do I disconnect? But so the setting boundaries is important, because if you do have children, whether they're young or they're adults, if you do maintain communication with your ex, setting boundaries is important. It's important in all of our lives. Setting boundaries is one of the most freedom giving things, one of the most freeing things you can do for yourself. It is a gift of freedom you give yourself when you have set clear boundaries, because without boundaries, everything is just happening willy-nilly. There's no guidelines, and your boundaries get set when you determine what are the things that are important to you, how do you want to show up, and what's acceptable and what isn't acceptable. Because as I talked about last week, your values are those guardrails. Those are the guidelines that you use to make decisions. And if somebody is overstepping a boundary or trying to ignore your boundary, you need to be able to communicate in an effective way to explain to them what happened, why this is a problem, and what the repercussions will be if it continues, right? So you want to understand that you're living into your boundaries. And you'll know when that boundary is being threatened and what happens, and then you can design a plan to address that. So I want to talk about naming your emotions, setting those boundaries, and staying true to your character, right? Stay true to your character. I told you it was a theater and film theme. We're talking characters, right? You don't want somebody else rewriting your lines. And what that looks like for me in your real life is you let somebody else's behavior take you out of character and your script gets changed. So you participate in that to some degree, but you don't want somebody else rewriting your lines. You don't want somebody speaking on your behalf who doesn't really know what you want for yourself or what you're thinking or feeling. You want to be able to speak for yourself, and you want to be able to show up and not be swayed by somebody else's behavior. And it's not always easy, especially if you've been in a relationship with someone where you've already developed a dysfunctional communication style. It's just always problematic. You could be agreeing with each other and somehow it still sounds like an argument. I used to have someone say to me a lot, "Oh, we're saying the same thing." And I'd be like, "We're not saying the same thing. How are we arguing if we're actually saying the same thing?" But that was a whole nother just control tactic to keep me off balance. So remember what the communication had been like in the past. And now you have to decide, how do you want it to be different now? What do you want it to be like now? Because when you need to set a boundary in real time because something has been said or done that you think was inappropriate, you being able to stand in your confidence or stay in character as you, when you're addressing it, is going to be a huge benefit to you, because you don't want to create a reason for you to feel bad because you let yourself get sucked in by bad dysfunctional behavior because it was a pattern that you had with this person. So we're going to do some role play here. We're going to start with this active listening. You've probably heard about that. Good communication also involves active listening, being able to be a healthy and respectful listener. And if you think about this in terms of film or theater production, if you see actors and it's believable, you really feel like you're watching this other person listen to the person they're in the scene with. Like you can see it on their face. They are 100% engaged in listening and taking this information in. And this is how we want to be. It's not always easy because our mind gets going and we're thinking about what we want to say. And I can't wait for them to stop talking because I know exactly how I'm going to come back. And so it's a challenge. And so what I'm going to suggest for you is this practice exercise that the next time you're there are a couple actually, one of them is going to be a role play with yourself. But in this situation, I want you to just slow down and I want you to first do a little scene study. I want you to pay attention to everything going on with the person talking to you. So I don't want you to just hear them, but I want you to pay attention to their tone. I want you to pay attention to their facial expressions, how they're holding their body, their posture. Are they up? Are they slouched? Are they tense? I want you to pay attention to all of those things and take all of that in while you're listening. I want you to see if you can identify the emotion behind it. And when they get done saying what they're saying, I want you to do nothing and say nothing for a couple of seconds. And this is what's going to help you disrupt the pattern. Because if the two of you have been used to back and forth this dysfunctional bantering where neither one of you is probably listening because you're both just in reaction mode and you're just mad because I don't like the way you're talking to me. It's not what you said, it's how you said it. You'd say the same and you're doing that. When they get done this time, I just want you not to say anything. And it's okay for you to take a couple of seconds and assess yourself. Because it's like, one, you're not hurt. You get to decide if you want to be insulted. Because I have this saying, I just said this in front of 150 people at a client event a few weeks ago. I said, we are so in a rush to be insulted and disrespected that it's too often our first response. You're not going to disrespect me. Well, I feel so insulted. Decide you're not going to be insulted and you're not going to be disrespected. Just decide it. Because the only way that happens, as my mother told me when I was 12, the only way you can be insulted is if you believe what they're saying. If you embrace it and take it in, then you get to make it an insult. And now they can't say anything to insult me. And I'm not going to be disrespected because you can set boundaries for that. Okay. And if it's just rude behavior, again, that's back to the boundary. So you have paid attention to the body language. You're watching the physicality. You're looking at the face. You're checking the tone. You're trying to tune into emotion as you're listening. So you're listening with all of your senses. And now I just want you to be quiet for a couple of seconds. And you don't have to respond right now. If something was said that didn't make sense to you, that you don't understand, that you don't agree with, you can always say, you know what? Thank you for sharing that. I need to take some time and think about what you just said to me. I just need to take some time and think about it. Even if it was something that you feel was an intentional insult, I'm just going to take some time and think about it. And I'll get back to you. And you want to be the person who does two things. Diffuse, if you can't, you want to diffuse if it gets to the point where it needs to be diffused. And do what you can to maintain engagement. And what I mean by that is do everything that you can to keep an amicable relationship going between the two of you. Because if you are co-parenting, the best thing you can do is be a model of what good communication looks like so that your child sees that. But not only if they don't see it, they benefit from the result of that kind of communication. Now, remember this. This is not unicorns and fairy dust. If you've been in a toxic relationship, especially somebody who's got a narcissistic personality type or that style is prevalent with them and you have been seeing it for years and years, you already know what the response might be. And what I'm suggesting to you is what can you do to not get sucked back in? I just heard something today. I'm listening to another book and she quoted, I think it's an old saying. It says, if you get in the mud with pigs, you will come out muddy and dirty and the pigs will enjoy it. It was something like that. Look that one up, see if I got it right. And so think about it. If you go into that dysfunctional pattern again, what has come of it in the past? It obviously hasn't been working. So why continue to invest that kind of energy? And you know where I see this a lot on the internet? I see this a lot on the internet. I see people posting things on Facebook about their ex or the other parent of their child or whatever, what they did do or they didn't do. And it's back and forth and it's this passive aggressive. There are very few things that if anybody out there can point to something, a real problem, a disagreement or something being resolved, communicated and resolved in a Facebook thread, please send it to me. Because I just refuse to believe that's where resolutions are happening. That's where healthy engagement, for the most part. I am a member of a couple of groups where we have really great engagement. But two people arguing on Facebook usually doesn't get you there. So you get to gather your thoughts and manage your physical and emotional self so that you can communicate in a way that is reflective of how you want to show up in the world. Now, talking about difficult conversations, yeah, there are difficult conversations. There's a reason they call them difficult conversations, because they're hard. Okay. And this is where I want you to do a little scene study, because sometimes we have gotten into these patterns and it's just an automated response. And the reason I'm saying that you need to take that 3 or 4 second pause is so you don't have an automatic response to your ex. Because I'm telling you, it's already in your makeup. Your DNA in that relationship is if they say this, or you see their face look a certain way, or every time they do one little thing with their, whatever the triggers are that you now have, you don't even have to be aware that you've seen them. It registers with you and you respond automatically. I am saying to you, watch that. So when you see their face curl up, or that corner of their mouth do, or their eyes squint the way they do, or see them get tense up in the shoulders, you've been watching that for years now, right? Now, the question is, you're seeing it. Are you going to respond automatically, or are you going to control yourself and go, oh, wait a minute. I see that thing happening. I see that thing happening. I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going, oh, yep, there goes that corner of the mouth. And there goes that eyebrow. The eyebrow just went, oh, the shoulder. That's it. The trifecta. They are full in right now. That's when you try to keep as calm a physical presence as possible. Take a deep breath and just say, you know what? I need to take a minute. Now, on the other side, what if you're the one who's getting all bent up out of shape and you are in autopilot and ready to snap?
You've built a successful career, checked all the right boxes. But after divorce, why does it feel like everything is falling apart? Searching for answers online at 2 a.m., it will not bring you peace. Neither will pretending you're fine when inside you're anything but.
I remember those feelings, the exhaustion, the anxiety, and the frustration from feeling stuck. It seemed like no matter what I did, I could not figure out a way to move past the pain. If you are dealing with a divorce while you're also managing your career, I've been there. Things didn't get better for me until I stopped waiting for time to heal me and I took control of my own healing. And that's how this came about. That's why I designed the 4 essential steps to creating joy after a difficult divorce.
It's time to break the cycle. Imagine waking up feeling lighter, knowing exactly what to do next, and rediscovering your joy, not just surviving, but thriving. In this masterclass, you'll learn the biggest mistakes that keep you stuck in divorce pain, why traditional recovery methods don't always work for high-achieving women, and the 4 essential steps to rebuilding your confidence and joy. Give yourself permission to stop reliving the past and start designing the future you deserve. Register today.
So some of the phrases for that, or I need a moment to process this, let me make sure I'm understanding you. Can we start this conversation over? So I have 3 scene stealer statements for you. You can put these in your toolkit, and it doesn't matter which one of you started this, but this is going to be really good if you have taken those 3 seconds and you want to respond, but you don't want to get into this back and forth. You can say, I need to take a minute to think about this. And a minute could mean several minutes, like I need tonight to think about this. We'll talk tomorrow. Or let me make sure I'm understanding you. And then you can repeat or paraphrase from your perspective what you think you heard. And even if they say, yeah, that's exactly what I said, Then you can still say, can I get a minute to think about this? Or let me just process this. And if they say, no, that's not what I said, say, then would you repeat it for me? Now, the third one is, can we start this conversation over? That means it may have just gotten so far, you've tried to paraphrase and they're just not having it, and you feel the pattern starting to happen. You can just go, you know what? Let's start this conversation over. Or, you know what, let's table this and let's schedule a time to really talk about this, because it's going to take more time than I have right now. I just gave you an exit strategy. This is like exit stage left, right? Whatever stage you need to exit, that's an exit line. I'm going to need more time to think about this. So let's schedule a time to talk about it. Now, your communication style, there are a couple of things. These are some things that you can write down that you can practice for yourself. I'm actually giving you one-liners here. So I feel like the person off stage, when an actor forgets their lines, you hear the person yelling off stage and they're giving them their lines. This is this. So you get to practice these. Here's something that you might say. You never tell me about school events. First, most therapists, I'm not a therapist, I'm a coach, but I've been to enough therapists. Most would say, try to avoid absolutes like never, always, every time. Because one, they're probably not 100% true. And they're just things that we use that kind of escalate the emotional stakes. So instead of saying, you never tell me about school events, try something like, I feel disconnected when I miss important things at our child's school. So let's sit down and figure out what we can do so that we avoid that happening for either one of us. Then there's one you can call like an emotional echo, where, again, when I said before, you're paraphrasing, it's what I hear you saying is, and then repeat or paraphrase to the best of your understanding, so that if you say it in your words, they can make sure that you understood them. If you just repeat back exactly what they said, that might not actually register that you understood them. Does that make sense? Because it's a lot easier to just repeat verbatim what they said, but you want to make sure you're understanding what they mean, not just what they said. So that's why paraphrasing is sometimes helpful. And then something that you can look at, like it's a future focused statement. So moving forward, how can we blah, 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 blah. Moving forward, how can we make sure that we're both on the same page about what's happening at name of child's school, so neither one of us misses a program? And so you want to remember, this is not about, at this point, trying to win an argument. Winning an argument is probably what was happening in the past. It's probably where all of the dysfunctional banter came from, because somebody had to win, somebody had to lose. And unfortunately, after divorces or breakups, so often the co-parenting relationship turns into, I'm going to get you, sucker, kind of thing. Or people going back and forth, and there's a winner and a loser. This is not about winning an argument. This is really about trying to create a co-parenting situation that is worthy of winning an award. Be those co-parents on behalf of your child and yourself. This isn't even all about just do it for the kid. Do it for you. Because if you maintain this dysfunctional, emotionally draining, toxic communication pattern with your ex, then how do you have a different kind of communication style with the next person that you meet, or with other people in your life? You shouldn't have to keep turning that part of you on and off. If you're able to figure out, how do I maintain an engaging communication style so that both people feel worthy of being in the communication, in the conversation, so that both people give and get the respect that is due them? Because I do believe respect is something we give. You don't earn respect, you earn trust, you give respect, which is why I think intimate relationships are difficult, because if trust has been broken, it's hard to respect the person. Respect yourself enough to behave in a way that you would be proud of. So if you never had an acting class before, I'm going to give you some more of these little like real world applications that you can try. So imagine you are in this scenario and you've got an option. Something hasn't gone right. Your ex didn't give you information correctly, or they forgot. And you say something like, you always mess up the schedule. Like the last one. What's another way you can say that? Instead of you always mess up the schedule, because that's probably not a really engaging sentence. They're probably now feeling attacked. Even if you're right, again, it's not about who's right and wrong. It's about what's the impact that it's having on the person, and how is that impacting your ability to have a healthy conversation. So instead of, you always mess up the schedule, how about, I noticed that there's a conflict with next weekend's plans. Can we both sit down or get on the phone and look at our calendars and see if we can find a solution to this? Something that's going to work for everybody. Now, that sounds like, instead of you calling them out, it's more like you've just called them in to have a healthy dialogue. And even if they want to argue with you, it's hard to argue with that. It's not impossible. I believe there are some people who will try. But what you can be proud of is that you showed up in a way that created an engaging, an open door for a better conversation, and one that's going to create a solution and not just continue with the banter back and forth. Here's another one. This is another, it's a bad take. This is going to be, we're going to forget that and take another scene. But that would look like your ex has already started dating and you find out, and your response is, I cannot believe you are dating already. Some of you may be going, holy mackerel, I've said this stuff, right? I would probably say this is a conversation you have without the new person being there. And it's something like, look, I just want to understand what your thoughts are about us introducing new partners to our children. Can we take some time and discuss what the guidelines look like? Now, you don't even have to wait for them to be dating to have this conversation. This is one of those things where you can be proactive, and it's good to just have that conversation. Now, understand something. Every one of these conversations, they're not going to go perfectly, but you may surprise yourself that they may go a little bit better than they have been going because you've changed your approach, right? You've changed how you're showing up. But the other person didn't watch this podcast. They haven't read my book. And if they're not going to therapy and getting counseled or coached to do this sort of stuff, and remember, they're in the same dysfunctional or toxic communication bantering style that you had been in with them forever. So their DNA in this relationship is geared to, oh, we're going to be going at it again. And so when you sit back, stand in your spotlight, remember you got your spotlight. You're not stealing the spotlight. You're just standing in your spotlight. When you step back and approach things differently, my mother used to say, people treat you the way you teach them to treat you. But she also said to me, when you do something different, they have no choice but to change, because you're not coming at them the same way. Now, sometimes you keep doing things differently and they keep coming at you the same way. And her point was, oh, it'll still change, because at that point, you're going to remove yourself from the situation. So there's going to be a change. But we want to, in a case where you're co-parenting, we're trying to maintain that level of communication and raise the bar on that communication. So as I wrap up the show today, and thanks for playing with me and doing your scene study and working on your own scenes here. You had your acting class. But remember, a lot of the things that I've shared with you, you can find more of these, I call it like transitional sentences, to calm the conversation down, to allow the emotions to calm down, to give yourself time before you don't react. You want to respond so that you have control over you. You're not trying to control them, and you're not trying to take control of the conversation even. What you're doing is communicating in a way that you keep the lines of communication open, but they're open in a healthy way for both of you to be involved, right? You're inviting this person in, not calling them out. So with that, every interaction, the kind of communication that your kids are going to carry into the future is going to be based on what they see. And just because they don't see you communicating at all with their other parent, that's not necessarily healthy either, because now they don't have any role. They don't have anything to model. So it's okay. They don't even talk to each other. So what a beautiful opportunity you have to not just have healthy communication, but when you're around your children as co-parents, that what they see you being able to do with each other is to create an amicable, engaging way of communicating with each other in front of them, because they will, I keep hitting my mic, because they will also learn from that. So next week, I'm going to be talking about trust, and I'll be pulling some more information from my book, Divorce is Not a Destination. I want to thank you for being here with me this week. And remember, this is your opportunity to create joy for yourself. This is not the final act or the fourth quarter. It is the Joy Act. And yes, you can create joy after divorce.